Hello and welcome to the Way Up podcast. Andrew Logan here. Great to be with you as always. And today I have a very, very special guest who I will bring on in just a second. A very close friend of mine, someone who I just love and adore spending time with. And she's got an incredible amount of value to bring you today. But what we want to talk about today is what is your relationship with success? And obviously, when we talk about the word relationship and when we talk about success, both very kind of umbrella terms, very subjective terms. So we want to cover a few aspects. What is success to you? What does that mean in any goal setting endeavor that you have, whatever it is, from, health goals or financial goals or business goals, and also your relationship with yourself. So do you feel you deserve success? But then also the power of a healthy, supportive relationship in the pursuit of success. So talking about those couple of factors, I would love to bring on the incredible woman, Mel Fernandez. Mel, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for listening.
Now, Mel, I want to give you a quick introduction, but anyone who, listeners to the podcast may recognize your last name because we had your incredible sister on earlier on in the show's episodes as well. Probably around episode 40 or 50. Alicia jumped on and she shared a fantastic story of personal development. And you have had a fantastic personal development story as well. I'd love to start there because we first met, I remember, in a cafe in Broadbeach, and we were having dinner and you were so incredibly shy, but more to the point, I remember we were having a conversation just about the toxic relationships that you were in at the time and how you were really looking for a way out. And obviously you've been able to do that and you've been able to create incredible changes in your life through your own personal development and your own belief in relationships and what you deserve. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story of how you've ended up now with a relationship podcast, with a relationship book, and helping women in particular through the process of breaking up and into more successful lives.
Oh, I love it. And what a question. And when you were just saying that, I was just having all the head nods and I'm like, yep. If I backtrack my dating history, I was in from toxic relationship to toxic relationship. But at the end of the day, to really narrow it down, it always came down to me. It came down to what I was attracting and the level of person who I was in my life. So long story short, Andrew, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I grew up not really knowing what love was. So for me, I was always seeking and looking for someone to love me because I didn't have any love in myself. So while I was doing that, I was creating codependent relationships because I was looking for men to love me. And that was creating such a toxic environment. It wasn't until I took a step back and actually gave myself, like when I saw you, I had just got out of one of the most toxic relationships, super toxic, where I was so insecure. He was insecure. We just brought out the worst in each other. And I used to jump from relationship to relationship. And when I saw you, that was the decision that I made, that that's it. No more dating for a whole year. I literally did not date, did not have sexy time, nothing for a whole year. And that was the year to just really work on myself and focus on me, to get comfortable with who I was inside and take off all my masks and just learn to just be enough. So that's where I really just started on that journey. And what really helped me along the tracks was I wrote a list of what did I want in someone, which is something that I hadn't done before. And I look back at it now and I'm like, it's like anything in life. Why don't we get a piece of pen? Why don't we get a piece of paper, a pen, and write down what is it that we want? What is our goals? What's our vision? When do we want it by? What does it look like? And how is it going to make us feel? So same thing in relationships. I wrote down, what do I actually really want? What do I want in a relationship? I got really clear on the must-haves, the must-nots, the non-negotiables, and the ones that I can negotiate with. That's okay, right? Not everyone's going to be perfect, but there are some things we can work with and we can negotiate and be like, that's fine, I can live with that. But that will always come down to what I respect. And once I wrote that list, Andrew, I now had a map on where I wanted to go, but I had to do the work, because to be able to attract that list, I then had to go the next step and ask myself the question, am I being those qualities? Because if I wasn't being those qualities, how was I going to attract that in someone else? So I started working on those qualities. And that's when I started picking up books, going to courses, following mentors on those areas on what I wanted to improve on. And that's how I managed to attract my beautiful man that I've been with now for over 2 years. And literally, if I read you the list, it is him to a T.
Well, I don't particularly like the fact that you saw me and said I'm not dating for a year, but I mean, we'll move on slightly from that. Maybe got lost in translation a little bit, obviously, when you said that. But I think the really important things, obviously, that you became intentional. Like you sat down and you said, like, what is it? And I always talk about the 3 steps to success in anything is be, do, and have. So you were intentional with what you wanted to have. But the first step was actually to go internal. The first step is to look in the mirror and say, well, actually, am I being all those qualities? Am I doing those things? And then by being and doing, you now have. Whereas so often we can get caught up in the have and we want to have everything and we look externally. So it's not always comfortable to go and look in the mirror. And again, this is for everything, right? Like when we talk about your relationship, it's what you felt you deserved success-wise, because since you've been in a successful relationship, you've now had great business success because of that, right? It all came down to being intentional and setting your life on purpose. So how do you have that conversation with the mirror? Because it's not always a really great conversation, is it? To look in the mirror and say, I am the problem. Like you are the problem looking at yourself.
Yes. And you know what? I love that because it's literally about getting real and raw with yourself. And sometimes we can put masks on and we can lie to ourselves in the mirror. We can look ourselves and we can actually lie. It's really insane what we can actually do to just justify our behavior. But it's getting real, Andrew. Like at the end of the day, I remember for me, I constantly have this battle in my head that I wasn't enough. And I'm like, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And those were the words that I was telling myself. And words are so powerful. Like if I was saying I'm not enough, what's going to happen? I'm going to believe that I'm not enough. And that's going to have a ripple effect and impact so many things in my area, in my life, like relationships, relationships with my family, business, like so many different things. So I remember that when I would look myself in the mirror, and it sounds like so like cliche or ooh hoo hoo, but I'm being serious. I literally would say my affirmations. And the biggest one for me was I am enough. I even got lipstick and I wrote it on the mirror. I am enough. So when I looked myself in the mirror, I had it there saying, I am enough. I am enough. If you feel like you're saying something to yourself right now that's quite negative in the mirror, ask yourself the question like, what is it actually doing for you? How is it impacting your life? Because the quality questions you ask yourself is the quality of your life. And then reverse it. What if you're saying, I'm not good enough? What if you reverse it and said, I am enough? And trust me, it's not easy at the start. I remember even writing it on the mirror, being like, oh my God, I am enough. This is so weird. I don't believe this. Why do I have I am enough on the mirror? But every day I would say, I am enough. I am enough. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm reading it. I'm reading it. It's going synced into me. Like fast forward now, this is probably that when I had I am enough, this was about 5 years ago. I can stand here and be like, I am enough. And I truly believe it.
I know what you say. And I remember for myself in the early days, I'd set goals and I'd speak them into my phone, goals and affirmations, and I'd speak them into my phone. And then, 5:30 in the morning, I'm driving to the gym and I'm playing those affirmations and I'm playing those goals back to me. And we can sit there and say, oh, that's a bit weird and stuff like that. But then to me, it's also weird to not be in an unhappy situation and not do something about it, to just kind of settle. To me, that's weirder. There's always going to be some like discomfort that we have to go through, but do we want to go through the discomfort of telling ourselves an affirmation every morning or going through staying in an uncomfortable relationship?
Yes, so true. And the thing is that it's at the end of the day, it's about getting real with yourself because we can never change anything unless we're aware of it. So if we're masking it and we're like looking ourselves in the mirror, like usually the I call it the imposters, like they come in and they can wear masks sometimes that they can say something that we may go, oh, okay, and then walk away from it, but it actually holds us back. Like if we're not living to our truly greatness right now, why not? What is it that you're telling yourself that's holding you back from living in the greatness? Is it that, oh, I'm okay. Like I live a good life. If you live a good life, why don't you live a great life? What is masking itself right now? Because until you can figure it out, that's when you can start to change it. But if we're not aware, then we can't. And to figure it out, it's about getting curious. Nothing can ever change unless we get curious and we start asking questions.
I love it. I love it. So let's go into some practical things here. So, you know, you and I in the network marketing industry, it's an industry where we can see a lot of females in particular, unfortunately, struggle with unsupportive partners. And, you know, again, it tends to be more predominant. It can be anything, obviously, it can be any sort of setup, but tend to see a lot of women struggling with their unsupportive male spouse in this sort of setup. And how do you help someone deal with that? Like, how do you talk to someone who may just be struggling with the partner not supporting them? And again, whatever their endeavor is, whatever their idea of success is, how do they get through that environment if the environment is negative and like always around them?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I can really dig more into this because it's interesting when we say unsupportive partner. It depends on what that looks like for someone, because someone may think they're being unsupportive because they may not be doing the same thing they're doing. But is that being unsupportive? Like maybe they're showing up in different areas where they are being supportive. Like to give you an example, network marketing is a huge, huge industry where one partner may be doing it and then the other may not be doing it. But then the partner may be thinking they're not being supportive because they're not doing network marketing with them. They're not showing up on team calls. They're not doing, they're not going to events. But they may be doing other things like looking after the kids or doing laundry or or cooking dinner or something. That's support. So it's like, what does it actually look like? I had this battle in my head a couple of years ago when it came towards like support and growing, because my partner Reese was on a different track and he was doing something different to what I was doing. I was training for an ultra marathon, and people were like, oh, how come Reese isn't doing the ultra marathon and training with you? I'm like, because he doesn't want to do it. Like, he doesn't want to do it. Like, that's not his thing. He's focusing on something else right now, but he's supportive. Like, he's there. He was there for the whole race. He was there, like, being like, you can do it, but doesn't mean he had to do it with me. So that's one way of looking at it. Like, ask yourself, is my partner actually being supportive, right? What is he doing that could be supportive? And we may be thinking he's being unsupportive. And then the other thing is, have you ever heard the story of the crabs in the bucket?
Yes, but it's such a great story. I'm sure we can all benefit from that. It's because it's so true, right? This story.
It's such a good story. So I'll give a quick version of it. So basically there was a woman walking down the beach and she saw this fisherman and he was fishing, and there was a bucket and the bucket was open, and she looked over and there was all these crabs, and she was like, excuse me, fisherman, like, why don't you have a lid on this bucket? The crabs are going to escape. And he's like, well, you see, miss, what happens is the crabs aren't going to escape, because when one crab tries to get out, all of the other crabs grabs the crab and pulls it back down, trying to protect the crab. So this crab may look up and be like, oh my God, there's the light. I see something there. I'm going. But then all the other crabs get scared and they're like, no, come back to where we are. We're trying to protect you. And that's how sometimes I look at people who are unsupportive and partners who are being unsupportive. It's just that they don't see what we see. And they're only trying to protect us and bring us back to where they are at and their level. So if you feel like you have a partner who's being unsupportive, have you actually cast a vision for him of where you're going? Have you actually got buy-in? Like, whatever you're doing, do they know what it is? Bring them along and show them. Let them know, hey, I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for our future. Let's sit down and map out so I can show you where I'm going and what I see. So have you cast the vision? That's what I would say, because at the end of the day, if they're being unsupportive, it's just that they don't see what you see and they're trying to protect you.
And that's so important, isn't it, to understand that a lot of it is good intentioned. Like, it's not negatively intended. Sometimes it is, unfortunately, but most of the time it's a positive intention that they're just trying to protect you. They've heard bad stories or something like that, or they're worried about you getting hurt. And I know for Angie and I, it was exactly the same, but opposite. You know, I was sort of driving this thing for a while, and Angie wasn't that interested. But the thing that changed everything was sitting down and having that conversation. And we had been together. We were married at the time, but we'd been together for probably about 3 or 4 years by this stage. And it was the first kind of proper conversation we had of actually, where do we see ourselves in 5-10 years? Is the path we're going on right now going to get us there? Probably not. So we need to look at something else. And simply by having that conversation, everything changed. Like our lives just took a 90-degree turn at least overnight. And we just went in this completely different direction. And thankfully, I've always said, on top of everything else, we've done this together. And that's always been the best thing. And that actually probably takes us into a great question, because I know you and Reese are very similar to Angie and I, where you are on this same path, but you're also completely different. And, you know, anyone who knows Angie and I, we're rowing the same boat, but, you know, like with one left hand and one right hand kind of thing. Like we are complete opposite. Now that's great when we are on the same path, because we can cover each other's strengths and weaknesses. But if we're not seeing the same path, if we're not kind of in the same boat, we can obviously clash, because we are total opposites in so many ways.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know you were talking the other day about like this test you'd done recently. You'd read a great book and you'd done a test, and you were talking about like your personality type and how you're the one who's coming up with great ideas and Reese is the implementer. But then you've been able to mesh that in together to have a successful relationship, and probably brings us into that next sort of topic of what are the keys to a successful relationship to make sure that you are working together towards a common goal?
I love that question. Great question. I think at the end of the day, Andrew, I just did a post on this. It's like understanding as well on a deeper level, like how does your partner want to receive love, and how does your partner want to give love? And the thing with this is that we think, and it's so common, most of us do this. When we think something, we think everyone is thinking it. And we think that's how the world thinks. Like, have you ever got frustrated at someone, you're trying to explain something, and you're like, why don't they just get this? It's so simple. I don't get it. But it's because we're thinking that they think like us, but they don't. Everyone thinks differently. And it's because of so many different programming of upbringing, what we read, what we do, like that's what programmed us. So when it comes towards love, we also love differently. So we love to give love differently, and we love to receive love differently. And I'm sure a lot of you who are already listening has heard the book of the 5 love languages, amazing book, which talks about different ways on how to love and how to give love and receive love. But it simply just comes down to asking your partner the question, like, how do you love to give love? And how do you love to receive love? And then acknowledge that and learn how to do that. However the way they love to give love, allow them to give you that love. So for example, I'm acts of service, right? And sometimes like Reese also is acts of service. So he may give me too much acts of service, and I don't have any room space to give him acts of service. Such a small example. But for me, I say to him, it's knowing your roles in the relationship. So it's not this whole like we have the same role. We have different roles. We're a team, right? Like a netball team. You have goal attack, goal defense, right? We're not both goal attack. We have roles. So for me, I'm like, so simple, but I'm like, my role is to get the water every single night and put it beside the bed. He did it one time where he put the water beside the bed, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's my role. Like, let me take responsibility for that role, because it makes me feel good. So what is your role in the relationship? What are you playing to have a successful relationship? Sit together and be like, how can we be a team? How do you want to receive love? How do I want to give love? And take that on board. So that's one area right there to have a key and successful relationship. But I know, Andrew, you were talking about the book that I read the other day. Such a great book. It's called Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham. I highly recommend going and reading that book. You can also do a test online, but it's cheaper. Little hint there, it's cheaper to buy the book because they give you the code to do the test online. And it's like $67 online or something, and $30 for the book. So buy the book. And basically, it's actually a test to discover your strengths. So not your personality, but your strengths. And it's one of the best books I've ever read and done a test on when it comes towards discovering who you are. So there's a difference between like our skills, our talents, and the knowledge that we have. This is actually our strengths and what we're born with. So Reese and I both did it. And when we did it, and it came out with like our 10 top strengths and my 10 top strengths, and we looked at it and we went, wow, this makes so much sense now. So how can we implement this in our relationship where we can work on each other's strengths? And that has helped so much.
I love it. And so for people who haven't read The Love Languages as well, it is fantastic. And again, I mean, we talk about relationships, but in everything. So we have a love language that we like give out and a love language that we receive, as you say. And it's physical touch, acts of service, affirmations, quality time, and gifts. And I know it's similar for Angie and I, because Angie is a huge acts of service, like in her giving language. She loves to do acts of service for people. Like she's always making things for people or going out of her way to help people. And me, I'm just a quality time person. It's like just sit beside me and relax at the end of the day. And so for her, she wants to cook dinner every night. And it's not just, steak and 3 vegetables or something. It's a masterpiece every night, because she wants to come out with that plate and for me to look at that plate and see the love that she's poured into the meal and just be like, oh, thank you, darling. Whereas I'm just like, just put something on a plate and sit beside me for an hour. Like I'd rather you had that extra hour beside me, put 2-minute noodles on a plate. I don't care. Whereas she's like, no, I want to spend that hour in the kitchen making you this beautiful, healthy meal full of love. And so it's always been a great thing for us that we did, of understanding, well, it's not that, I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, why aren't you sitting next to me? And she's getting frustrated because you're like, why can't you see the love I put into this plate? And the communication breakdown was just misunderstanding how she was expressing love and how I wanted to have love expressed. And then that purely goes into, again, when we talk about leading a team, when we talk about running a business, people are going to want to receive things or want to express things in different ways. And if we can be bilingual, multilingual in how we help people and support people and listen to people, we can help so many more people, right? We can help them see their greatness because we can speak their language.
100%. 100%. It goes down for so many things in business, and even understanding, like if you're in a work environment and you have a team, like get to know your team. How do they want to receive love? How do you want to give love? Get to know their strengths. What are they good at? We focus so many times on people's weaknesses. Like in organizations, you see people focusing on someone's weakness and they go, okay, how can we make them better at this area? What training can we do? How can we skill them up? When rather than actually taking a step back and being like, what are they good at? And what are their strengths? And let them focus on that and 10x their strengths, and then find someone else to do the other area and hire someone for that. Like it's getting to know and building that. We will never be able to know unless we build that relationship and get to know people.
Awesome. Now, just finishing up, I know you've just released a podcast specifically on this topic of, in particular helping women really find themselves, find their strengths and help themselves out of relationships. And I know you launched it just recently. I got to be a guest on it just the other day as well, which is really, really cool. Very honored to be on there. But you went like top 5 straight off the bat. So if anyone is listening to this and they are needing a bit more help in this sort of area, they are needing a bit more support with their environment or their relationship, or they're needing just to find their own strength a bit, how can they find you and your podcast?
Oh, love it. Well, I am on Apple and Spotify, and thank you. I'm so blown away. I cannot believe it's been launched for 2 weeks. It's had 2,000 downloads and hit number 5 in relationships. But it's all about life, money, the relationship you have with yourself, your partner, you're going through a breakup, covers so much stuff. But you can just literally just go to Spotify, go onto Apple Podcasts and type in Rediscover You, or you can look me up on Instagram. I'm the Mel Fernandez. So good, Andrew. I am the Mel Fernandez. And yeah, you can just check my bio and you'll see my podcast in there as well.
Yeah, awesome. And I know as well, guys, if you've gotten value out of this again, or if you know someone who is struggling in a relationship, you know someone who is struggling with an unsupportive spouse, and this might help them, just click the share button below, share it out to them, and like comment below that you've shared, because Mel's got a couple of things that can really help as well. She's got a journal and she's got a quiz, I think it is as well, isn't it? That she'll send out to you that you can then pass on to that person and help them. Tell us a little bit about that.
Love it. So I've got a couple things on there. It's also on my Instagram too, where I have a Love Your Body guide, which I love. It's my top tips of 5 nutrition tips, 5 exercise tips, and just learning to love who you are and love your body. I also have a 60-day no contact rule journal. So if you are going through that breakup and you want to be able to cut that contact and let go of your ex-partner, I have that as well. But yes, I do, Andrew, also have a quiz, and the quiz is there to help if you are going through a breakup. It is a quiz there to help you figure out what stage of the breakup you're on and how to work through it.
Awesome, Mel. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on. And as I said, anything we can do, anything that we can do to help you just have that conversation with the mirror. Obviously, it can be a bit warts and all. And sometimes, I love to talk about with personal development. There's so many great things about personal development, isn't it? And we talk about like the beauty of personal development, but it can be a bit warts and all in the process too, right? Again, it's that kind of be, do, have, is that we all want the result of personal development, but sometimes we do have to, just maybe peel back a few layers of that onion, and we might not always like everything that we see inside, correct? But you have been just this shining example of incredible growth, and it's great to see it. And I know you're just continuing to grow. I know we had a chat just the other day that you're just starting a whole new venture now. Like, you've really found your niche and you're absolutely loving it. So thank you so much for being on, Mel.
Oh, thank you for having me, Andrew, and thank you for being such an incredible role model in my life, my mentor as well. And for everyone listening to this podcast, how amazing. And it's Andrew just putting out incredible value, here to help you grow, here to help you step in that personal development. And you've just been such a huge inspiration, Andrew. So I want to say a massive thank you to you.
Well, I know you and Andrew will have champagne some point very soon. Hey, we'll do that as a little thank you. Actually, it was just the other day. It was Halloween. I was thinking of you just the other day because it was Halloween and there was this enormous electrical storm at our house again on Halloween night, exactly 12 months after we had you around last time. And we sat out and watched this incredible lightning storm on Halloween night. It was such an amazing night. And we played
werewolf.
Yeah. We were playing a werewolf game and the lightning's going. And I was thinking about you and I'm like, what are the odds that exactly 12 months later this happens again? So Mel, great to have you on. Everyone else who's listened in, thank you as always for tuning in to the podcast. And we'll see you again very soon. Bye.